The most used functions in Excel are the ones those sum and count. In this example, we'll see how to use the sum and count function in a variety of ways. So let's say we have a mark sheet of students where they've appeared for 3 examinations: English, Maths and Science. The total marks for each subject is 100, and these are the scores that each of them have obtained. So now we'll see how to get the total marks for each student. We can use the sum function to calculate the total marks. What we'll do is, in this cell F4, we'll key in equal to sum and then click on the function arguments dialog box over here and reference these numbers to English, Maths and Science. So this is Alan's total. Now we'll simply drag this down to other students, and this is how we'll get the total marks for each of them. Now we'll see how to get the average marks for each of the students. So to get the average, we'll use the average function. And click on the button over here to open the function arguments dialog box. And these arguments would be the individual scores in English, Maths and Science, and click on OK, and here we get the average marks for Alan. As you know, we can simply drag it down to get the average marks for each of the students. Right? So now we'll see how to get the grand total for each of the subjects. So here we can use a shortcut to get to the total faster. Instead of going through the function arguments dialog box and doing it one by one, we can simply use the alt equal to shortcut and get to the total in just a second. So see, now we can simply drag this total to the other subjects to get to their respective grand totals. So what is the sheet asking next? It's asking what is the number of students. Number of students can be calculated using the count A function. So count A would simply give you a count for all the non-blank cells in the range. Which means that it would be taking a total of anything apart from numbers as well. Had we used the count function over here, we would have got a 0 value, as these are non-numeric values. Right? So count A function would be used in such a case. Now moving on to the number of subjects. Number of subjects can be calculated using the count A function again. count A for these subjects, which will give us the answer 3. Now the next question here is to calculate the maximum marks in each of the subjects. So to get to that, we'll use the max function. Max function would help us give us the highest value in the range, which is 89. 89 has been obtained by John in English, and this is the highest, right? So now we can simply drag this to the other two subjects to get to their respective maximum marks, and this can also be dragged to the total marks to get to the maximum obtained total marks. Similarly, we need to calculate what is the minimum obtained marks in each of the subjects, and we'll use the min function for the same. To do min, select the entire range, click enter. So 39 is the minimum marks in English, and it was obtained by Ahmad. Right, so we can now drag this to the other subjects and to the total. We'll see 25 in maths and 30 in science is the lowest, and 106 is the lowest grand total. Now it's asking us how many number of students have obtained more than 60 marks in each of the subjects. So for this we'll use the count if function, where this will be our range and our criteria would be greater than 60. So as we click on OK, we get the result as 4. So 4 students have got more than 60 marks in English, and this can be dragged on to the other subjects to get to their respective counts. So similarly, we can get the count of how many number of students who have failed. Say the pass mark is 40. So we can use the count if function, given the range and the criteria as less than 40, and click on OK. Now we see that only one student has failed in English. Dragging it onto the other subjects, we see that 2 have failed in maths and 2 in science. So our next question asks us to get the total marks of students who've got more than 60 marks in maths. So till now we've been working with a single criteria, but in this question we see that we have more than one criteria. That is, we need to get the total marks of the students with 60 marks plus in maths. Right? So how to get to this? When we are dealing with multiple criteria, we need to use the sum ifs function. So sum ifs function will ask for the sum range. That is, we need to find the sum of total marks, where the criteria range 1 is the marks in maths. criteria is greater than 60, right? So we click on OK and we get 986, which means that the total marks of all the students who have got more than 60 marks in maths comes to 986. We'll just check how. So who are the students who have got more than 60 in maths? Tom, John, Zafar, Kubair and Prince. So their total marks are 218, 225, 208, 140 and 195. Let's see, the sum total of this is 986. Got it? So this is how we deal with cases which have more than one criteria and use the sum-ifs function for the same. So similarly, we can find out the average of all the students who got more than 60 marks in maths. We'll use the average ifs function for the same. So the average range is this. The criteria range is this. And the criteria is greater than 60. Click on OK to get to the average marks of all the students greater than 60 marks in maths. Now we'll see how to get the number of students with more than 60 marks in all the subjects. So for this, we'll use the count ifs function. The criteria range is with a criteria of more than 60. This is our first criteria. The second criteria is the marks in maths, more than 60, and the third criteria is the marks in science, more than 60. So in this condition, we are seeing that we are having more than one criteria, actually three criteria that we are dealing with together. Clicking on OK, we get the answer as 3. So there are 3 students who have got more than 60 marks in all the subjects. So the next question wants us to get the total marks of all the students who have got more than 60 in all the subjects. The previous question wanted us to count the number of students. This one is asking us to total the marks of all the students with more than 60 marks in all subjects. So here we'll use the sum ifs function to get to the answer. So sum ifs, the sum range being total marks, the first criteria range being the marks in English and the criteria being greater than 60. The second criteria range is the marks in maths with the criteria of more than 60, and the last criteria range is the marks in science criteria being more than 60, right? So now we click on OK and get the total marks of students who've got more than 60 in all the subjects. Now let us also see how to get the average of total marks of all those students who have got more than 60 in all the subjects. So we again apply the average ifs condition that we just learned over here. Now average ifs, the average range would be the total marks. The first criteria range would be the marks in English, the criteria being greater than 60. The second criteria range would be the marks in maths, criteria being more than 60. And the third criteria range being the marks in science, the criteria being more than 60. Now we'll click on OK and we'll get the average of all the students who've got more than 60 marks in all the subjects.